said earlier about your big priority right now is deporting public safety threats and national security threats. How does changing the ICE policy that allows agents to conduct arrest and enforcement at churches and schools help with that?
There's no safe haven for public safety threats and national security threats. People say, well, were you really going to a high school? Well, people need to look at the MS-13 members and Tren de Agua members who entered this country, a majority between the ages of 15 and 17. Many are attending our schools. If it's a significant public safety threat or a significant homeland security threat, there's no safe haven. We'll go where we need to go to take them off the street.
Do you have any reason to believe that elementary schools or churches are harboring, these violent immigrants who are here illegally?
Like I said, when the circumstances arise, we got a national security threat, a significant public safety threat, we're going to go where we got to go, whether it's a school, a church, or a hospital. It shouldn't be a chilling effect unless their child's a terrorist or a public safety threat. If they are a public safety threat, national security threat, they should be chilled. They should be afraid because we're looking for them.
In order to hide the Trump administration's objective to conduct their random and expensive mass deportation plan, the border czar has claimed over and over that they're prioritizing public safety threats.
How do you round up 10 million people and deport them?
Well, look, I agree with the president's plan on this. And the same plan he had during his first administration, you concentrate on the public safety threats and the national security threats first, because they're the worst to the worst. So it's going to be the worst first. That's how it has to be done. And we know a record number of people on the terrorist watch list have crossed this border. We know a record number of terrorists have been released in this country. We've already arrested some planning attacks. So look, the president is dead on when he says criminal threats, national security threats are going to be prioritized. And that's the way it's going to be. Well, look, I think the president's been clear on the stage. As far as the deportation operation, we will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats because they're the biggest, they pose the biggest danger to the United States. Right now, as we said repeatedly, and the President Trump's been clear, we're concentrating on the worst first, the public safety threats, the national security threats. And just yesterday, in the last 24 hours, ICE arrested over 308 serious criminals. Some of them were murderers. Some of them were rapists. Some of them raped a child. Some were a sexual assault of a child. So ICE is doing their job, and they're prioritizing just as the president said they would.
No, first off, the drumbeat of claiming that they're going after violent criminals and public safety threats so regularly makes supporters believe that immigration policies under other presidents didn't deport the same kinds of people. In fact, the Biden administration deported more. The difference is Trump's reliance on extreme forms of propaganda, where he sells the reality more than living up to it. So while they conduct their deportations, they're using expensive military airplanes for a badass look and releasing pictures of people in shackles to satisfy the intense fear that they installed in their supporters. It all originates from the mouth of their omnipotent leader that they trust more than documented evidence.
We were being scolded because we had them in shackles in an airplane, and he said, this is no way to treat people. Now you understand, these are murderers, drug lords, gang members, just the toughest people you've ever met or seen. How would you like to be the pilot of a plane? You got two pilots up there and you got 300 people sitting in a plane. Every one of them either a murderer, a drug lord, a kingpin of some kind, the head of the mob, or a gang member. And you're flying that plane, it's not going to end well. Do you ever see the movie Con Air? That's what, yeah, except here's the difference. The people in Con Air were actors. They weren't nearly as tough as these guys. I would say that plane would be gone before it ever left. Those pilots would be gone before it ever left. So they don't want us to shackle them. I don't want to be in that plane.
It's just a bunch of colorful language and movie references to describe the people that they're deporting. But they're not revealing actual evidence of prioritizing the arrest and deportation of violent criminals. This allows them to say whatever they want for MAGA to eat up, while the public never gets a definitive picture. It creates an atmosphere where the fearful public trusts them to target whoever they want and not question any citizenship or human rights violations that they're ready to carry out.
Of the 3,500 arrests ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office, can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
You may have one going the worst first. They all have a criminal record?
And welcome to the briefing
If
room.
they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal. Yes.
So just as quickly as they vowed to target public safety threats, claiming airplanes are full of kingpins, gang members, and drug dealers, it switched to anyone that they considered to be an illegal immigrant. This came with extra attitude from Caroline Levitt towards the reporter that asked about their priority of violent criminals, as if they never made that central piece of their sales job. So pay attention. This is the process of accepting whatever they're doing with immigration and shaming anyone that dares ask them to answer for it. This is how popular policy can easily transform into attacks on our own citizens.
They even break into apartments and rape elderly women and beat up elderly men, beat them to hell. And I don't want these violent repeat offenders in our country any more than I want illegal aliens from other countries who misbehave. And I say, and this is subject to getting it approved, but if they've been arrested many, many times, they're repeat offenders by many numbers, I want them out of our country. I also will be seeking permission to do so. We're going to get approval, hopefully, to get them the hell out of our country along with others. Let them be brought to a foreign land and maintained by others for a very small fee, as opposed to be maintained in our jails for massive amounts of money, including the private prison companies that charge us a fortune. Let them be brought out of our country and let them live there for a while. Let's see how they like it.
So are we listening to this fascism? You see how quickly we've gone from prioritizing violent illegal aliens that need to be deported first to targeting American citizens that Donald Trump wants to deport to foreign countries where they can be imprisoned for a small fee. What fee and for what promises to be given to the accepting country? Who knows? Who cares? Donald Trump, to them, makes those decisions and is already bypassing congressional power and oversight in multiple ways after just 1 week in office. Because in fascist governments, anyone that opposes the authoritarian is an enemy of the state. But he and anyone that assists in his lawlessness is innocent. And that includes the violent criminal gang of red hats that he pardoned just last week.
We're learning somebody involved in the January 6th riot on the Capitol, pardoned by President Trump, has been shot and killed during a traffic stop in Indiana. State police are looking into what happened. They say a deputy tried to arrest Matthew Huddle when, as they put it, an altercation happened between the officer and Huddle, which resulted in the officer shooting his gun.
This is one of the first major news stories to emerge from one of these January 6th defendants who was pardoned. I mean, this is something that a lot of my sources have been expecting for a while. Wasn't sure necessarily when it was going to first fall, but this is probably the trickle of stories we're going to get on January 6th going forward. It'll be about people who committed other crimes outside of this. Because remember, while there were certainly a lot of people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th and didn't have a long criminal record and might have even have no criminal record at all, and were citizens otherwise, upstanding citizens otherwise, according to their neighbors, there was this whole contingent of these January 6 rioters who had some really awful criminal histories behind them. Domestic abuse, really ugly assaults on their partners and wives, child molestation cases, these DUI cases. There's a lot of drug problems, a lot of alcohol problems.